could, I was interrupted by the maitre d'. He was screaming as well as talking. It was as if he had a belly full of steam and a tea kettle whistle caught in his throat. That dog! Eee! I told you time and time again about that dog. Eee! All that time I can't sleep. Eee! She say cut your face, that cunt. Eee! How you tease me. Eee! And now you bring that dog in here. Eee! The room fell silent at once, of course, diners looking up in astonishment from their meals or their conversations as the thin, pale, black-clad figure came stalking across the room, with its face outthrust and its long, stork-like legs scissoring. The maitre d's bow tie had turned a full 90 degrees from its normal position, so it now looked like the hands of a clock indicating the hour of 6. It was me he was looking at, me he was approaching. I stared at him, feeling almost hypnotized. It was like one of those dreams where you discover that you haven't studied for the bar exam you're supposed to take, or that you're attending a White House dinner in your honor with no clothes on. And I might have stayed that way if Humboldt hadn't moved. I heard his chair scrape back and glanced at him. He was standing up, his napkin held loosely in one hand. He looked surprised, but he also looked furious. I suddenly realized two things: that he was drunk, quite drunk, in fact, and that he saw this as a smirch on both his hospitality and his competence. He had chosen the restaurant after all, and now look, the master of ceremonies had gone bonkers. Eee! I teach you! For the last time, I teach you! See here, you idiot, Humboldt said, turning to face him, and the maitre d' brought his left hand out from behind his back. In it was the largest butcher knife I have ever seen. It had to have been 2 feet long, with the top part of its cutting edge slightly belled, like a cutlass in an old pirate movie. Look out, I yelled at Humboldt, and at one of the tables against the wall, a skinny man in rimless spectacles screamed, ejecting a mouthful of chewed brown fragments of food onto the tablecloth in front of him. Humboldt seemed to hear neither my yell or the other man's scream. He was frowning thunderously at the maitre d'. You don't need to expect to see me in here again if this is the way, Humboldt began. Eee! Eee! The maitre d' screamed and swung the butcher knife flat through the air. It made a kind of whickering sound, like a whispered sentence. The period was the sound of the blade burying itself in William Humboldt's right cheek. Blood exploded out of the wound in a furious spray of tiny droplets. They decorated the tablecloth in a fan-shaped stipplework, and I clearly saw, I will never forget it, one bright red drop fall into my water glass and then dive for the bottom with a pinkish filament like a tail stretching out behind it. It looked like a bloody tadpole. Humboldt's cheek snapped open, revealing his teeth, and as he clapped his hand to the gouting wound, I saw something pinkish white lying on the shoulder of his charcoal gray suit coat. It wasn't until the whole thing was over that I realized it must have been his earlobe. Tell this in your ears! The maitre d' screamed furiously at Diane's bleeding lawyer, who stood there with one hand clapped to his cheek. Except for the blood pouring over and between his fingers, Humboldt looked weirdly like Jack Benny doing one of his famous double takes. Call this to your hateful tattletale friends of the street, you misery, dog lover. Now other people were screaming.